I'm 61 now, but I can still taste the copper in the back of my throat from that night. It was the mid-70s. I was 14, living in the Australian suburbs. My parents and siblings had headed out somewhere, leaving me alone in a house that felt too big once the sun went down. I was just a kid who liked to disappear into books. I was in my bedroom, propped up against the pillows, reading. The house was surrounded by dense bushland. That's the thing about the suburbs back then. You were always just one fence line away from the wild. It was quiet, the kind of quiet where you can hear the fridge hum and the wood of the house cooling down. I knew the rhythm of that place, the way my bedroom door would groan if you pushed it too fast, and the specific way the hallway carpet felt under my feet. That's when I heard it. A noise. It was barely there, just a scratch against the silence. I stopped reading. I told myself it was just a possum on the roof or the wind catching the eaves. We didn't have a radio, and the TV was stone cold off. I figured it was just my brain trying to fill the quiet. But the feeling, that sudden, cold shift in the air, told me I was lying to myself. I put the book down. I crept into the hallway, moving like a ghost, because I knew my door would creak and give me away. Once I was out there, the noise got sharper. It was coming from the kitchen, which meant I had to cross the living room to get to it. I stood on the balls of my feet, barely breathing. The living room was empty, just shadows and old furniture. But the noise was louder now. It wasn't a scratch anymore. It was voices, two of them, locked in a whispered, heated argument. I stood stock still for 5 minutes. I was convinced it was robbers. I started creeping toward the kitchen corner. Moving so slowly, it felt like I was standing still. I even kept my mouth open so my own breathing wouldn't betray me. I peeked around the corner, and the kitchen was empty. But the voices, they were louder than ever. I don't believe in ghosts. I didn't then, and I don't now. But how do you explain two invisible men standing in your kitchen, arguing about things you can almost but not quite understand? I had to know. I knew if I didn't find the source, I'd never sleep in that house again. I followed the sound to the stove. It was an old model, the kind with the exposed steel coils. I leaned down, my ear inches from the metal. The voices weren't coming from the room. They were vibrating out of the coil itself, right where the metal joined the electrical plug. It turned out to be a freak occurrence, some kind of radio talk show signal being picked up by the stove S-wiring. My parents thought it was a neat trick when they got home. But here is the thing that still keeps me up at 61. I spent 20 minutes in a dark house, alone, listening to the impossible. For those 20 minutes, those men were there. They were real, they were angry, and they were inside the walls of my home. To this day, I can't look at a kitchen appliance without wondering what else might be listening, or what is waiting for the right frequency to finally speak to me again. I was 11 when this happened. I wasn't a special kid, just a bit of a problem, the kind of kid who couldn't just go to sleep when told. My parents were strict, but I developed this routine to keep myself sane. Every night I'd wait for the house to go silent. Then I'd sit at my small wooden desk and draw in my album. My room was at the very end of this incredibly long corridor. If you leave the door open, you're just staring into this lightless tunnel that runs the length of the house. It was boring, honestly. I knew every creak of the floorboards and the exact way the shadows fell from the coat rack. I do spend hours just focusing on the texture of the paper and the lead of my pencil, trying to get the shading right on whatever I was sketching. At some point I looked up. My door was cracked open, and about halfway down that dark corridor, I saw a shape. It was small, maybe the height of an 8 or 9-year-old kid, and it was sitting on this long red duffel bag we kept in the hall. My first thought was that my eyes were just playing tricks on me, the classic eye floaters, or just the way the brain tries to find patterns in the dark. I blinked hard. I rubbed my eyes until I saw stars, figuring that once my vision cleared, it would just be the red bag sitting there alone. But it didn't go away. I looked back and the silhouette was still there, sitting perfectly still on that bag. Then it got weirder. I tried to focus on my drawing, but the silence in the house changed. You know that feeling when the background noise of a house, the humming fridge, the distant traffic just vanishes? All I could hear was the thud-thud of my own heart. It was too loud. I looked a third time, and that's when the human but off feeling hit me. It wasn't moving, not a twitch. It was just there, existing in a space where nothing should be. That was the moment the logic broke. This thought flashed through my head, clear as a bell. What if it doesn't seem to you at all? It wasn't a trick of the light. It was a physical presence. I didn't dare turn around again. I just stared at my desk, paralyzed, realizing that something was sitting right outside my door, waiting for me to acknowledge it. I heard footsteps, real heavy footsteps from the other end of the hall. My mother had woken up. She walked right through where that shape had been, came into my room and started scolding me for being up so late. I never saw it again. To this day, I don't know what it was or why it was sitting on that bag. But sometimes when I'm alone in a long hallway at night, I get that same feeling, the one where your heart starts to drown out every other sound. I survived that night because my mom woke up, but I always wonder, what if she just stayed asleep? What was that thing going to do when I finally ran out of paper to draw on? I've had a few strange things happen in my life, but there is one specific memory from when I was 12 that still makes my skin crawl, mostly because I wasn't the only one who saw it. It was just a normal evening, the kind of boring routine you don't even think to remember. I was in my dad's bedroom, just sitting there talking to him while he relaxed. My mom was in the walk-in closet. The lights were off in there, but the bedroom light spilled in just enough that we could clearly see her silhouette. She was doing what she always did, folding clothes, moving with that rhythmic, mechanical habit she had. I didn't think anything of the darkness. I just figured she was trying to save on the electric bill, or didn't feel like reaching for the switch. My dad asked her a quick question. She didn't answer. I assumed she was just focused on the laundry, or maybe she hadn't heard him over our own chatter. It's easy to ignore a question when you're mid-task, right? But then he asked again, a bit louder. Still nothing. Just the steady, repetitive motion of her arms folding fabric in the dark. He eventually got to the point where he started to yell her name, his voice echoing in the small room. The figure in the closet didn't flinch. It didn't turn around. It just kept folding. I got up, planning to step into the closet to see what was wrong. But just as I moved, I heard a voice from the bedroom doorway behind me. "Why are you yelling my name?" I froze and looked back. My mom was standing in the doorway with a towel wrapped around her. clearly having been somewhere else entirely. I whipped my head back to the closet. There was nothing. It was just an empty, dark space. But whatever we had been looking at for the last 10 minutes, it wasn't my imagination. It had my mother's exact shape, and even the specific bun she always wore her hair in. It was her, but it wasn't her. My dad and I just stared at each other, completely freaked out. We both saw it. We both watched her fold clothes for 10 minutes while the real her was not even in the room. I still don't have a logical explanation for what that thing was. We never saw it again, and we never talked about it much after that night. But sometimes when I see a shadow in a dark doorway or a shape in the corner of my eye, I wonder, what would have happened if actually stepped into that closet before the real mom walked in? What would have happened if I'd reached out and touched that shoulder?
To respect the privacy of the individuals involved in this case, the likenesses of the characters shown in this video have been modified. While the names and events are based on true documented accounts, the visuals serve as a dramatic representation of the story. This is 3 AM Stories.